The sky outside is turning that deep, peaceful shade of blue as evening takes over, and you're probably in your usual quiet place, maybe sunk into the recliner with a soft throw across your lap, or sitting at the table while the last of your tea goes cold in the cup. That gentle tiredness is creeping in again, a little heavier than the day really called for. Your back carries a quiet ache, your thoughts drift without quite landing where they should, and even the small everyday things that used to happen on their own, like remembering if you already turned off the porch light or what you plan to do next, now take an extra second or two of focus. You might let out a soft breath and think, well, this is just what getting older feels like, isn't it? But let me sit down right here with you, like we're old friends sharing the calm end of the day, and speak straight from the heart. I've heard this same gentle concern from so many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. And after more than 20 years working closely with seniors on sleep and brain health, I can tell you honestly, a great deal of that mental heaviness, those frustrating little memory slips that show up more often these days, and the quicker way small irritations can feel bigger than they used to, aren't always just the years adding up. Very often they're connected to sleep habits that have quietly drifted out of their best rhythm. And the truly hopeful part is that gentle, everyday adjustments can help bring back clearer mornings, steadier moods, and a sense of your mind working more like it once did. I'm Dr. Michael Kent, and I've spent decades sitting with folks just like you, listening to the same honest descriptions. They tell me about walking into the kitchen and standing there blank, not sure why they opened the fridge, or starting to tell a story to a friend on the phone, and then pausing because the next word simply won't come. Or waking up already feeling like the day is too long before they've even slipped on their slippers. They come to me believing these are the unavoidable marks of time passing, something everyone has to accept. But when we sit and look closely, especially at how their nights unfold, sleep patterns that have drifted often turn out to be doing more of the damage than anyone realized. The advice most people hear about sleep, that you just need to get enough hours and you'll be fine, only scratches the surface. Sleep is when your brain does its most vital behind-the-scenes work. Every single night, it becomes a patient caretaker, gently sweeping away the waste products that pile up from all your daytime thinking, moving, and living. It carefully stores the memories you want to keep so they stay solid and accessible. It repairs and strengthens the delicate connections between brain cells that let you reason clearly, solve little problems, and pull up names or faces when you need them. And it resets your emotions so you can wake up feeling even and calm instead of starting the day already tense, short-tempered, or weighed down. Whenever that nighttime process gets shortened, interrupted, or knocked off balance, even by things that seem small at first, the brain feels the impact right away. The changes show up in ordinary daily moments that can feel minor but build over time. You might begin a phone call with a neighbor and then hesitate because the name of their new puppy slips your mind, or you find yourself getting annoyed waiting for the mail carrier because patience feels thinner than it once did, or you sit down to look through a favorite book and the words don't hold your attention the way they used to. Sometimes it's as simple as trying to follow a conversation with a friend and realizing halfway through that you've lost the thread, or getting short with your spouse over something small like how the dishes are stacked because your nerves feel raw. The National Institute on Aging has put clear numbers to this. Nearly half of adults over 65 face ongoing sleep difficulties, yet more than 60% of those same people believe the problems are harmless, or simply what happens as you age. What they often don't see is how those sleep troubles can steadily erode brain function over months and years, without any sharp pain or obvious red flags to warn you it's happening. It's like a slow, silent wearing down that you feel in those everyday moments, but don't always connect back to the night before. The most surprising thing for many is that one of the biggest quiet threats to staying mentally clear in later years usually isn't too much sugar in your food, the daily stresses that come with living, or the family genes you were born with. More often, it's the seemingly minor habits around when you go to bed and what happens during the night. In the time we have together today, I'll walk you through the 5 most common sleep patterns that silently affect senior brains, then share the straightforward, research-backed adjustments supported by solid studies from Harvard, Stanford, and the National Institute on Aging that can help protect your memory, keep your focus steady, and help your mood stay more balanced. These aren't complicated or overwhelming changes. They're practical, gentle steps you can start right in your own home without turning your whole routine upside down. We'll go through them one by one, taking our time so you can picture exactly how they might fit into your own days and nights. Before we go any further, if you wouldn't mind, just type your age in the comments. I always appreciate seeing who's here listening, because it helps me feel like I'm talking directly to people who might be noticing these same shifts and want clear, easy-to-follow ways to feel more like themselves again. Let me explain what's really happening in your brain when your sleep schedule isn't steady, because this explanation is something most people never hear in plain, everyday words. As we move through our 60s and 70s, the circadian rhythm, that natural internal timer that controls alertness, memory strength, focus ability, and emotional steadiness, begins to lose some of its earlier flexibility and smoothness. You can picture it like a train station that used to run on a perfect timetable. Every train arrived and departed exactly when it was supposed to, keeping everything calm and organized. If the schedule suddenly becomes unpredictable, with trains showing up at random times, disorder spreads through the whole system. Your brain works in exactly the same way. The master clock inside it, a small region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, relies heavily on regular daily cues to keep all the rhythms coordinated. When bedtime drifts from one night to the next, perhaps early one evening because you're especially tired after a busy afternoon, later the next because you stayed up talking with family or watching a show, the deep non-REM sleep stages, which are so vital for turning short-term experiences into long-lasting memories, get noticeably shorter. Those deep stages are where your brain does some of its most important filing and strengthening work, sorting through the day's events and locking them in place so you can recall them clearly later. A team at the University of Colorado followed 300 adults across 8 full years, and their findings were clear and consistent. People whose sleep times varied a lot from night to night experienced a 30% faster decline in their ability to recall specific events and details from their days. And this link held even when total sleep time stayed roughly the same. I know this can be hard to accept at first. Many people say to me, "But doctor, I still get 7 or 8 hours most nights. Why should the exact time I go to bed make such a difference?" The answer comes down to the difference between simply being asleep for a certain length of time and getting the high-quality restorative sleep your brain truly needs. Consistent timing allows the full depth of those repair stages to happen. Without it, even adequate hours leave important parts of the brain's nighttime work incomplete. If you've ever stepped into a room and stood there wondering what on earth you came for, or reached for a name during a conversation and come up empty, feel free to add the word foggy to your comment. So I know this feels familiar. It's one of the most common things people mention when they first start noticing these changes. Another habit that appears over and over is lying in bed awake for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes close to an hour, figuring it's no big deal since you're at least trying to rest. It feels innocent in the moment, but your brain is constantly learning from what happens, and prolonged wakefulness in bed teaches it that the bed is a place for thinking, worrying, or staying alert rather than drifting into deep relaxation. Over time, that association makes sleep lighter and more broken up because the mind no longer trusts the bed as the automatic signal to wind down. It's a lot like trying to park your car in a spot that's become a chaotic, noisy intersection when it should be tucked safely in a quiet garage. The calm space gets crowded out by activity. Johns Hopkins researchers followed 250 adults aged 65 and older and discovered that those who regularly remained awake in bed for prolonged periods had 42% more awakenings during the night and higher scores for morning anxiety. That ongoing pattern quietly contributes to feeling mentally cloudy during the day, getting irritated more quickly over small things, and sometimes developing a new sense of unease or nervousness that feels strange because it wasn't part of your usual way of being. You might notice it when you snap at your spouse over something minor, like how the remote is pointed, or when you feel restless even though nothing particular is wrong. Going to bed much earlier than needed, say 7 or 8 in the evening, because it seems like the sensible choice to guarantee plenty of rest, surprises almost everyone when I point it out. It makes sense on paper, but the brain actually requires a sufficient number of wakeful hours during the day to generate sleep pressure, that healthy buildup of tiredness that helps you drop into the deeper, more healing parts of sleep. When bedtime arrives too soon, Both deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep with its dreaming phases end up shortened, which directly weakens how well memories get stored and how steadily emotions stay regulated. Imagine your brain during waking hours as a sponge soaking up everything you see, hear, and do. If it hasn't had enough time to take in that daytime water, it can't fully squeeze itself clean and refreshed at night. University of Michigan researchers examined older adults who chose very early bedtimes and found their REM periods were 20% briefer, even though they stayed in bed 9 or 10 hours altogether. That shortened REM can closely resemble the early signs of thinking slowing down. Yet in many cases, the brain itself remains healthy. And getting the wake-sleep balance right reverses the pattern. You might notice it when you wake up feeling like you didn't really rest, even though you were in bed a long time, or when your mood feels off balance for no clear reason. Light coming in during the night, even faint amounts from a hallway fixture left on, a phone screen glowing while charging, or a television left on low, catches nearly everyone off guard. It tells your brain it's not truly dark yet and holds back the release of melatonin, the natural hormone that guards brain cells and helps launch the deepest, most repairing sleep phases. You might picture the nighttime brain as a factory that needs complete darkness to run its cleanup crew efficiently. Any light keeps parts of the system working when they should be off, so waste piles up longer. Stanford investigators tested the impact on adults 65 and older, and saw that even modest amounts of light at night dropped melatonin levels by 50%, resulting in shallower sleep overall and less effective memory building the next day. People tend to downplay this one because the damage accumulates so slowly and doesn't announce itself with immediate discomfort, but it quietly adds to the overall burden. You might notice it when you wake up feeling like your head is full of cotton, or when small details from the day seem harder to recall. Using sleep medications regularly over a long period rounds out the common habits. These can provide welcome relief for short stretches when sleep is particularly difficult, but when used nightly across many months or years, a number of them dampen the very deep non-REM and REM stages the brain depends on for processing what you've learned, clearing out harmful buildup, and maintaining emotional equilibrium. A study published in JAMA Neurology examined seniors taking benzodiazepine sleep aids consistently for more than 6 months and noted a 23% reduction in slow-wave sleep, the particular stage responsible for washing away proteins like beta amyloid associated with cognitive risks. Even when the person feels they've slept enough, the brain misses out on full nighttime maintenance, leaving small gaps that accumulate over time. You might notice it when you feel like you've rested but still wake up foggy, or when your mood feels uneven even after a full night in bed. The good news that keeps coming through in all of this is that none of these habits lock in irreversible harm. Brains retain impressive resilience well into the 60s, 70s, and even later, and meaningful recovery often follows when conditions improve. Awareness paired with small, consistent adjustments makes the difference, not fear. To make this feel more real, let me tell you about 2 people I've worked with closely. Margaret was 72 when she first came to see me. She sat across from me feeling both frustrated and frightened, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She described how her mind seemed to be slipping away day by day, walking into rooms only to forget her purpose there, groping for ordinary words that used to flow without thought, noticing memory lapses pop up regularly in conversations with her daughter on the phone or while chatting with neighbors. She said it scared her because she didn't want to become forgetful in ways that would affect her independence. She believed she was getting 8 solid hours of sleep each night, but as we talked further, she explained that her bedtime varied quite a bit, sometimes starting at 9 if she felt tired early, other nights closer to 11 if the evening stretched out, and she frequently spent a full hour lying awake with her mind spinning through worries about her grandchildren or replaying small events from the day. Together we introduced the REST protocol, a clear, phased plan I'll describe in detail shortly. We started slowly, focusing first on setting a fixed wake-up time, then gradually adjusting her bedtime and adding the other pieces as she got comfortable. Within 6 weeks, she returned with noticeable excitement in her voice. She said her mornings had transformed. She now felt roughly 80% clear and alert upon waking instead of the 40% she had grown used to. Nighttime awakenings fell from 4 or 5 episodes down to just 1 or 2. The anxiety that had begun shadowing her days eased considerably, and she regained a sense of trust in her own thinking. Memory wasn't suddenly perfect, but her brain felt nourished and rested for the first time in a long while. Looking me in the eye, she said quietly, "I was convinced I was losing my mind for good, but it turned out my brain had just been running on empty without the right kind of rest." She even laughed a little as she told me how much more patient she felt with her family, and how she enjoyed conversations again, without that constant worry in the background. Harold was 68 and had adopted the habit of retiring very early, around 7 most evenings, because he thought extra time in bed would protect his health and keep him strong. Unfortunately, he would wake around 3 in the morning, completely alert, and remain unable to fall back asleep for hours. Testing showed a mild dip in his short-term recall ability, and he had depended on a low-dose sleep medication for several years. He told me he felt like he was always playing catch-up with his own mind. We focused on establishing a fixed wake-up time every morning, reducing any sources of light after dark, and gradually shifting bedtime later in small increments so his body could adjust comfortably. After 8 weeks, his deep sleep had risen by 35%. Based on the wearable tracker he used, his word recall score climbed from 15 out of 20 to 19 out of 20. The persistent morning haze cleared away completely, and his daily mood became far more consistent without the emotional roller coaster he'd experienced before. The rest protocol successfully realigned his natural repair rhythms, and he expressed genuine surprise at how much lighter and more capable he felt overall. He even said, "I didn't realize how much I was missing until I started waking up, feeling ready for the day instead of dragging through it." He mentioned enjoying his morning walks more and feeling less on edge with his wife over little things. Stories like Margaret's and Harold's aren't unusual at all. Hundreds of older adults I've worked with show clear, measurable progress in thinking, mood, and daily energy when their sleep habits get realigned. The approach that has guided so many of these improvements is something I call the REST protocol: rhythm, education, stimulus control, and timing. Let me walk you through it slowly and practically so you can see how it fits into your own routine, step by step, with some extra tips to make it easier. The very first piece is anchoring your wake-up time. Pick a realistic hour that works for your life, maybe 7 o'clock, maybe 7:30, and get up at exactly that time every single morning, no matter how the night went. Even if sleep felt short or restless, rise anyway. Open the curtains, have your breakfast, perhaps step outside for a moment to feel the air. This one habit powerfully steadies your inner clock and builds stronger natural pressure to sleep deeply the next night. It gives your brain a clear, reliable marker for when daytime begins and nighttime should follow. Harvard-led research demonstrated that holding a consistent wake time boosted deep sleep by 30% within only 2 weeks for many participants. People often notice they start falling asleep more easily in the evening simply because their body learns when day reliably ends. Try keeping a small notebook by your bed to mark the time you wake. Seeing the pattern day after day can make it easier to stick with it, and you might even find your body starts waking naturally around that time without an alarm. If mornings feel hard at first, keep the curtains open the night before so light gently wakes you, or place your alarm across the room so you have to get up to turn it off. This small effort helps reinforce the habit and makes it feel natural sooner.